Oh, Liz Jensen. Oh, hey guys, what's going on? We're having a little chat today about the different employment systems within the countries of the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and Australia. Why? Because we were just having that same discussion, and we happen to have Miss B here representing the grand old United Kingdom, as well as our friend here, GG Mels, who's hailing from the land under down under Australia. So, hey guys, so what's the deal with our jobs here? Because you were just saying over here, Miss Quinn, that over there, like if you get a job, you typically keep a job, right?
You do after the 3-month period, yep. It is a permanent contract with you and your employer.
So when you say permanent contract, like there's no way you could ever be separated, or like are you bound? Does that mean you cannot leave your employer? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so if you have there's separate things there. There are different contracts. Sometimes they are short-term contracts. They may last 6 months or 1 year, which can be extended if you and your employer agree to it. But most people are on a permanent contract, which means after the 3-month probation period. So before the 3-month probation period, your boss can just terminate the contract at any time they like. So after the 3-month probation has gone, it is incredibly difficult to fire someone.
No, I have seen some instances like that in the past. I mean, over here in the U.S., most terms of employment are usually just at will. Like there's no actual employment contract. Just very often, I think a generalized boilerplate is it's employment at will unless otherwise specified by the president or board of directors or something along those lines. So there does seem to be a difference, but it kind of sounds like there's almost you have that 3 month trial period. Now, is that because you guys have a particular federal jobs program or nationalistic program?
No, the 3-month probation is purely to see how you fit within the company and whether or not the boss likes the work you do, and whether or not you like your job, because that's also important.
So what would it take for you to technically lose your job? Like, could you like? I mean, like, what are the limits? I mean, I assume if you were to commit a crime against another coworker or something, that would not be something. I think it would be something they would frown upon.
So in your contract, they will give you a brief description of your duties and the hours they expect you to work. So as long as you do that, you will keep your job.
Well, I mean, you just can't go up and just like assault a coworker or something like that or do something terrible, right? I mean, like there's still laws, right? Or would
Of
that
course,
not affect your employment?
of course, that would affect your employment because then you would probably get a criminal record. And once you have a criminal record, mm, I'm not too sure, but your rights do go down, and they will terminate your contract for that.
Oh, okay. So as long as you're a good little bee, you're generally in the clear.
I mean, if you turn up to work and you try your best and take on board what you're supposed to be doing, then you're fine. You've got nothing to worry about.
Mm. No, but the only issue I could see there be is just if something ends up happening outside of work and you all of a sudden receive that tarnish on your permanent record, like that's where if there is going to be a separation between your at work stuff, if you're able to fulfill all your obligations and everything, but something outside is ends up being a factor, that's where I start having issues. Again, it depends on what it is, but that's where I kind of start to see some. That's the point where it's a really difficult area. But I'm sorry, Gigi, I've kept you out of the chat a little bit there. So hailing
That
from the
it's
land under
okay.
down under. So just kind of describe. You kind of describe. It was similar, but it was a bit different.
Yeah. So mine would be again being or Australia being well a little bit a part of the UK, and then obviously trying to branch away from it. We have a variety of different types of employment. So it's broken down into three categories. You've got full time, part time, and casual. Now, full time is just your salary. You rock up to your work, you do 38 hours a week, and you get paid the same like payment every single week. It doesn't matter how many hours you actually work, how many hours you do or don't do, you'll get paid that. So you earn X amount a year, and that doesn't change unless you get a pay rise. Then part time, you'll have within your contract. So this is where you have your contracts. You'll be given X amount of hours that the company has to give you. But on top of that, if you do more, you will get paid the hours that you actually work. So say you're on a part-time contract for 25 hours, but you work 40, you will get paid those 40 hours. Whereas if you don't get those 25 hours that week, the company will add those hours to pay you those 25. And then
So, okay, go on.
you will just be given shifts. So when the company needs you to work, that's when you work. So if they're needing you to do a 4-hour shift on Monday and you don't get any work for the rest of the week, that's all you get paid for. So you could work technically 7 days a week. Oh, and the next week work another 7 days without any breaks. But because you're casual, you can do that. Whereas like in part-time and full-time, you will technically need to have an X amount of break within working X amount of days.
So there's a minimum time off always built in. No, that's very interesting. So
Yeah.
like there are different levels of classifications, and like are these very open and apparent? Are these easily communicated?
Yes, yeah. So when you're hired, you will be put on one of these contracts. So you will either be brought in as full time, where like say again full time and part time, you earn like sick leave and holiday pay and stuff like that. Where the time period that you work within that company, you accumulate those hours to take those like periods off. So whether or not it's holiday or like your sick leave, where it's like if you have a day where you physically can't go to work because you're unwell or family emergencies or whatever, the work will pay you for those days.
So basically, if something ends up happening, if you end up being sick during the week or whatnot, basically you would still be paid your full, so thereby guaranteeing you basically your normal wage to deal with anything that you may come up from with there.
Yeah, within reason. So some companies, depending again within your contract, like one of the jobs that I had beforehand, if I had holiday, I got a loading on top of that. So I got paid 1.25 of my
Oh,
actual pay. So
so
I got a little bit
you got
extra.
bonus because it was holiday pay.
Yeah, yeah, which is really cool. So
Oh, dude, I love that back in the day. I did third shift security for a while, couple of pay periods where it's like, all right, oh hey, I'm I'm working on a holiday. I happen to be on overtime. At one point for a couple of hours, I was on double time. It's like I didn't mind that paycheck. And
yeah,
then they took taxes out.
that's what like really that's what's like people will probably like that part time over full time because like you do get your penalty rates still. So you get 25 hours, but if you do 10 of those hours on a public holiday, those 10 hours are double time. Whereas like because I'm on salary now, I do my 38 hours a week and that's it. If I work on a holiday or I work on the weekend, I don't get any of those penalty rates.
Oh, so if you're on salary, you don't necessarily get the bonuses either.
No, so I get
Oh,
that paycheck. But again, it makes my life so easy because no matter how many hours I work, I know I have that money in my account on a Friday, that same amount. And yeah, it's
no, it's a certain level of consistency.
yeah,
Whereas depending on what your job is, and especially in a lot of different industries, I mean, whether it's manufacturing or retail, if you have a lot of folks that were used to putting in solid 50, 55-hour weeks, I mean, hey, I remember doing some of those. Yeah, it was a long time ago, but it's if you're putting in that time and you're actually getting paid decently well because you got a good paying job in an industry you actually enjoy, like to actually like lose that or slowly see over time all of a sudden like over a course of a year, you see like a 20% decrease in hours. So you go from earning all that overtime to maybe you're just at full straight pay now. If you're at full straight pay, all of a sudden you start going down to like a few more hours less, it gets lower. Then if you fall to part-time, then I mean, sometimes that was like decoupling folks from their health insurance and shit. So um I'm just trying to think, and I get that because it keeps it more done, but I'm trying to think like, do you think, and I'm gonna make a more of a leftish argument in this case. Do you think part of the reason they do that is because Australia also has is there a form of like healthcare for all down there?
Um, it's really hard to say because like, I wouldn't know what the healthcare systems are elsewhere because we are fairly remote from
Do
the
you
rest of
have
the
to
world.
worry about applying for health insurance?
We pay for our insurance, and depending on what you actually need, so if you've got a disability or something that actually needs like help,
If something no no
the
it
government.
if you lost your job for whatever reason, let's just an asteroid MC finally managed to lasso one and it happens to land on wherever your place of employment or whatever would be the conduit for your place of employment. It was destroyed. What would happen?
So if you've set up like your funds for or the industry funds, they will cover loss of work, and you will get paid what is within that like binding agreement that you signed. If that makes sense.
There's
But
something
on top
built
of that,
into
yeah,
the system
yeah,
inherently that accounts for that.
yeah. But we also have something called Centrelink as well. It's like if you're unable to find work, the government will support you. So
Okay,
depending,
so it is
yeah,
like a Medicare or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So but there's a couple of things. So like for me, I have funds that if I did lose my work, I wouldn't need to go on to that Centrelink or what we have called Centrelink. I would be covered with other things that I have in place.
So okay. So that's one of the big things we have over here because I remember
Yeah.
even back in the day we'd have programs known as like Cobra and stuff, which was a continuation of health insurance in case you happen to be separated from the company. I'll be straight up, man. When I left one of my jobs, I'm looking at it and it's like, oh, well, it does help working for a Fortune 100 company. They were paying for a lot of this stuff, and it's like a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I'm like, oh, I live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I got Romney Care here. All right. So I sign up for my Romney Care. They did not have a digital version of it at this time. I had to print out like 42 freaking pages, go through all that stuff, fill it in, get it like faxed and electronically sent over. Oh, it was such a pain in the ass. And by the time I actually got a letter saying, "Hey, you're all good and said and good," the funny thing is, it was about 3 months, and within those 3 months, I had pretty much already gotten a job, and I think I may have technically had coverage for 7 days, but I didn't really check the mail until my new health insurance had pretty much just started. So I'm like, "Yay!" I did use it at one point. I did use it at one, maybe twice, but the
Yeah, yeah.
application process was a pain in the ass, man.
Yeah. See, we have ours is called technically like superannuation. So our workplace within each pay puts a small amount into that. Well, most businesses, again, it's very flaky. Some businesses don't. But most businesses will put X amount into
Well,
to a
that's
superannuation,
yeah,
which
no,
will cover you. Say, like if I don't know, you're in a car crash and you're unable to work for 6 months, or like you are like injured to the point where you are unable to work again, which again, Centrelink will come on board and give you a wage subsidy to cover what expenses you basically have to allow you to like live um, comfortably, I guess.
to be able to
But
have
then,
a somewhat
yeah,
decent standard of living.
yeah, yeah. But then, like for what I have my work superannuation, which work puts money into that, and if something did happen, I would have that. But then I also have a personal one, which I put my own money into.
So you have
Which,
supplementary. Okay, you know that's smart.
yeah, so it's still the same thing,
So
but
how does that work, if you don't mind me asking? Like, now, when you say that supplementation, does that based on a company thing, or is it an
so
individual thing? Like, does that follow you around? Is it like
yeah, it does follow me around. So the money that's been put into that account covers the things that the the
it's a
contracts.
personalized
Yeah,
tax for health?
yeah.
It's
So
employer contribution.
if
Okay, I got you.
yeah, so basically the main point of it is when you retire, you've got a lump sum of money sitting there for you to enjoy retirement. But again, at the same time, if something does happen to you that's impacts your life to the point where you can no longer work, you've got that as well. So that's basically what I have. I have one that I will continually to put money into. That if something did happen, I would grab that because it is a little bit better when I'm younger to claim it. Whereas the other one, my work puts money into it, and when I do retire, as long as nothing happens to me, I will have both to claim or one to claim if I have to claim it the other one earlier. But again, not everyone has systems like that. Usually they'll just have the one or none.
Well, that's the interesting thing. No, because that's smart. That's what we call an annuity. And I did work for a financial institution in an internship capacity at one point. And the way they explain it, it's like you invest over time. The sooner you start putting money in, even if the market goes up and down, as long as you have at least some decent form of management, or even if you just toss it in, just over time, it does go up. And you want to be diversified, but the longer you have, the more often you'd want to take certain risks, because certain risks can pay off very well. I mean, that's just like investment 101 kind. Basically, you're just investing, you're diversifying, and you make sure you're in smart industries. And if all of a sudden the industry completely tanks, maybe you don't want to stay in it. However, at the same time, sometimes folks get into just a short sell, because the further something goes down, and certain billionaire businessmen are quite good at this, and many argue the morality and some of the intentions, but that's another story entirely. So, but yeah, no, over here in the U.S., we tend to have an at-will employment system. So, unless it's otherwise specifically specified, they can get rid of you for essentially any reason. However, there are certain circumstances that it could be viewed as perhaps being discriminate. What do I mean by discriminate? Because if potentially an employee were to do something within their capacity in working said role, if they're doing something that falls within the scope and course of their employment, basically, you can't necessarily fire an employee doing their job if they happen to point something out, if they happen to come across something. So, like, for instance, in the Wells Fargo thing, where all of a sudden all these additional accounts just happen to be created. Why? Because a lot of these folks were under a lot of stress, they were under a lot of pressure. And especially if you're working in an industry like the financial industry, it's like you can earn a very good living in the financial industry, just because, I mean, it's a lot of money in that industry. And if you're going to have tough jobs, very often large employers, they will pay highly well for folks that are willing to do tough jobs. It's just then you kind of start delving into, kind of, if you're working in a sales capacity there, how are certain things, how are you regulating your morals, your ethics? Because I remember I went to a double ASB accredited business school. There are only like 200 or so in the country at the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're around. I'm sure there's a lot more now, but I mean, it was basically just a general, you cover these particular topics. The only requirement for a degree under that program was a single business ethics class. And
So,
it, and do
sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, but no, but it's with business ethics. I'm like, all right. Basically, what I remember from that class was, while you're working, you may come across times where you have a chance to make a substantial amount of money. That substantial amount of money, you may be tempted by that. If it is a moral violation, don't do that. And I just remember, I'm like, okay, this is a very, very just vanilla milk toast class here. For some reason, it, I feel like maybe there should have been something else besides just that. Because when you go to finance, it's like, all right, you do this, you do this. I'm like, all right, this little bit here, I'm like, that could pay off. And I'm just, all I'm saying is when all of a sudden I learned there are certain discrepancies in the market and that, and I'm not sure if this is true, but it kind of seemed to be true and it worried me. When I learned about short selling, and it's like, all right, you put money in a stock, the stock goes up, you make money. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you put money in a stock, the stock loses money, you cash out because you were shorting it, you make money. I'm like, that seems like an incentive that if folks start doing that, maybe they'll keep doing that because it's just going to kind of force it down because it's the market forces just going in that direction. And I'm like, but if you can make money and lose money in theory on something, but if you made enough money, you had a corporate gains tax that was only 15%, and that's if your loss amount is 35%. With potential creative accounting, you might be able to just put money in and short it, and as long as there's a market fluctuation, you'd at least gain a tax shield where if you're making money in general, you just made more money.
So don't you have a whistleblowing procedure or system in place?
Well, there
That would
there
shut
are
the whole system down.
no. There are, but it's like number one, how are you going to do that? Because like if you're actually going to blow the whistle and someone's actually going to listen to you, you're going to need evidence. You're going to need like, it's kind of like was it the Lindsay Shepherd thing? She actually happened to have basically like the conversation. It's kind of like Matt Christensen. He has a transcript. Apparently, he's very fast at transcribing um, or remembering extremely well the conversation that was had. It was published. It had to be put into audio by both Sargon and V. They did do an excellent dramatic reading. It sounds like perhaps they've had conversations role playing like this before. But no, just the whole fact that if you actually have evidence that a person cannot challenge, and you're going to need to have good things because it's like, okay, you can always catch somebody out of context. You're going to need thorough documentation, kind of just showing that you're in the right somehow. So a lot of times folks might know things, but do you think, oh, they kept emails for like the past 10 years or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they even sent like because things might happen. And unless you actually like have documentation that like something was said or there was an employee mailer that went out that was asking you to do something that was highly unethical or something like that. It's like,
Keep all your emails.
well, yeah.
I do it just to prove people wrong later on.
Oh, you're a good troll and you're good at being a dick. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I know that's part of the reason why we love you, B.
Well, no, like for instance, the other day I had a student, not going to mention any names or anything like that, and he basically said, I didn't confirm this exam. So I wrote this very long email and attached all of the points where he had an opportunity to say, I didn't confirm it. And well, there was about 4 or 5 different points. And then he came back and said, oh, okay, maybe I did. So you've got to keep that shit because people don't know what they're talking about.
Well, yes, and that's why I would love to have you as basically one of my producers, B, just for the sheer fact that you remember that shit, you document that shit, and I'm lazy about that shit.
Yes, my record keeping skills are very good.
No, that's the thing. No, we each have our own set of skills, our set of talents, and I do think I see new forms of emerging workforces coming in the future just because with the power of the internet and stuff. I mean, in theory, you look at what some groups, just look at what Cenk Huger's done and stuff like that. I mean, you can disagree with the dude all frickin' day. He built a multi-million-dollar company off of basically just doing YouTube videos, man. And I think that's what a lot of other folks are trying to do and are doing to a certain extent. But it's like you see a lot of folks that are, I mean, aside from maybe a guy like Philly D, you're talking about folks that like could do great and amazing things. I mean, you can say Alex Jones did that. I mean, Alex Jones has been around for such a long time, but then again, Alex is Alex. So I mean, it is what it is. I kind of think he got a bum rap. I vehemently fucking disagree with some of the shit that he said. But again, it's like I can disagree with what the man says, but I can at least acknowledge that he should have the right to say shit, even if I think it's terrible shit. Because if we're going to believe in the First Amendment, it's like you got to believe in it unless the dude's breaking the law, because that's how we have it set up. And if we ain't going to acknowledge that, that's where a lot of folks are having differences just because they disagree on certain issues. But if you flip the issue around, if you change it to something that somebody really cares about, their views on it change sometimes. And it's just, I think if we have acknowledged that, sorry.
Sorry, I just said we don't have the First Amendment.
Oh,
yeah, we don't have anything like that. Like America is the only ones that. But again, like amendments are put in place because it didn't work in society back when
well,
it was put in place.
It was part of our Bill of Rights, and
Yeah.
also at that time, it's we spread a message around by making poor Paul ride all night from frickin' church to church screaming, "The British are coming, the British are." That was how we used to send messages. So it's like, if all of a sudden I'm gonna say, hey, Gigi, you're gonna have to tell B she's being a dick. So he's riding all night saying, B is a dick, B is a dick. It's like, okay, only so many people are going to hear that. Only so many folks are going to know that. But if I hop on the twatter and all of a sudden I twat that out, it becomes, oh, memes is starting shit. Oh, slash popcorn.
Yeah. Either way, like, again, yeah, it worked in society where it needed to, whereas now there are some amendments that are questionable. But again, nothing's being done about it because we'd rather just tweet and meme about it instead of doing something about it. Like gun laws.
It's easier.
Woo!
Okay, is it just me, or does anyone find it strange that President Barack Obama, oh, he's coming for our guns, he's coming for our guns. He said some words and he became the best firearm salesman the NRA and this country has ever freaking seen before, my man. And then we have President Trump, staunch conservative type individual, and he's infringing upon our rights by banning bump stocks. I mean, you can argue it's a throwaway, it's a giveaway, this or that, but I mean, the people's right to bear arms shall not be infringed. I mean, it seems like an infringement. And if you're going to criminalize it to the point where if somebody whom already owned this legally then possesses this, if they have it, they may end up being charged. I'm like, that sounds like ex post facto to me. It's like they own this before it became illegal. It is now illegal, so you're going to charge them with it. That sounds like a violation of ex post facto there. And you can argue about different things, but it's like, okay, yeah, bearing arms, bearing firearms and ammunition, stuff like that, like that's what the Second Amendment is. So if it has protection under an amendment, I'm going to give that a bit higher credence, man.
I really want that amendment. I want a gun.
For here,
please have proper training.
Yeah, for here, it's substantially harder to, like, okay, I'll bring up three things of what the world's kind of doing silly, but like for guns, for example, in Australia, if you want a gun, what will cost you maybe couple of thousand US dollars is going to cost you $30,000 in Australia for a decent-ish gun. But then there are regulations on what you can and can't have. You're allowed to own a pistol, you're allowed to own a shotgun, automatic rifle, nah.
What if you need to hunt boar?
We don't have boar here. And like a rifle, like a rifle you can have, but an automatic gun, no. And we're not allowed to have flamethrowers.
Wait, you are or aren't?
We're not allowed to have flamethrowers.
Well, I hear there's a lot of dry brush out there, so I mean, maybe that's a little bit on the wisdom side. Although Elon Musk's flamethrower is not a flamethrower.
Yeah. And I mean, like, what, Japan had their hottest day ever, which was like 30 degrees or something like that. But We get like 54 here.
All I know
Oh,
is
but
there's some very big pigs down south. I did see a thing where it's like, well, they were showing some like clips of folks saying, "Oh, you'd never need this gun," and then you see what some of these fucking giant boar can actually do to like herd animals and just like destroying crops and stuff. And if you're gonna just take a shot, it's like, okay, if you get a good shot, if you get a critical hit, yeah, you can take it down. No, I get it if you got a large enough caliber. But some of these, dude, they move fast too. That's the thing. They're big and they're fast. So to actually
but the
shoot it, that's where it's like, okay, of all the places
people,
and non like to harm another human being uses and stuff like that, because a lot of times you modify it. AR-15 is kind of like the core of like an MC. I get it; it's different, but I have used AR-15s that have had full automatic setups and stuff on them. I prefer the MP5 myself. But when you're using something like that, you do have the ability to put down more fire. Now, any more than
yeah,
a 3 round
but
burst
you
typically
don't
isn't useful.
need.
But I can understand if you're a hunter and you need to defend your farm. That's I can understand that.
Yeah, then have those higher caliber like round weapons. But if you're in the city, you don't need an MP5. What are you fending off? Pigeons?
We're the United States of America. These United States of I get no, you're Australia. I get some of the reasons you guys did things, but it's just
Yeah,
we do have the Second Amendment. That is a cultural thing, and it's like, okay, yeah, I get hit. Oh, memes are so
there
liberal and
is.
stuff like that. But it's like, no, I got to acknowledge that. I think that the
Yeah,
first plus second make us free because at the time, a lot of it was from fear of a tyrannical government, and you can
yeah,
argue all you want, but it's like if it actually came push to shove, oh, it's like, oh, they could just airstrike you. It's like there's only so many bombs and fuel, and you're also
yeah.
acknowledging the fact that you think the United States of America is just going to start to attack civilians. It's like, okay, that
It
question it may be asked sometimes, and it's one of
yeah,
those things where unless things, I believe most folks are good people, man. I
yeah.
gotta stand by
But
that.
if it is getting to the point where you're worrying about airstrikes, that MP5 that you fought so hard with your Second Amendment to have is going to mean squat because your country's in a lot more worse state than what the Second Amendment's covered you for.
Well, that's. I also take into acknowledgement that my level of importance to dedicate a laser guided bomb to drop on me. I mean, if I was, I mean, I guess it would be cool if I was worth that much, but I don't think I'm worth that much. And
Yeah,
it is one of those things where if you're talking about logistics, fuel depots, and stuff like that, like how long are you going to have stuff like that? And that's why it's like you got to take care of the folks, and the military is a pretty decent barometer for the country too, because folks come
yeah,
from all different walks and backgrounds and
yeah.
stuff that serve.
There is nothing wrong with having guns, and honestly, like I do like going to the shooting range, and I do like shooting weapons. They are fun, but there's a difference between like owning firearms and keeping them on a property just for the sake of keeping them. Like in Australia, if you want a gun, you need a license. You need to give a specific reason why you need that gun. And then if you want a second one,
Hmm.
the process is even harder. And then on top of that, when you start adding to your collection, you then need to have a certain size property that you need.
Okay, they're having
Yeah,
you provide just okay. No, you don't have the Second Amendment. No, I
yeah,
can understand that thought process there. It's like I'll be straight up, dude. I am in the state that is not a state, a Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we have the most. Last time I checked, restrictive gun laws in the nation. Maybe Washington D.C. is a bit higher now. I don't know, but regardless, the fact that if you want to get a firearm, yeah, you got to take the well, you can go out and apply for a rifle and stuff. Like once you get basically get your FDIC card,
mm,
your firearm permit. But if you want to have basically a sidearm or something, I went to take the actual mass license course. Go through the course, you go through the material, you go through the book, 2-day course. You do that, and then you just apply. And as long as you're over 21 years of age, you get your license to carry. If you want to get it concealed, they may. Oh, actually, I think it's always only carry concealed in Massachusetts. They don't like folks walking around open carrying. Different states are different. I think New Hampshire might allow you to open carry, and then conceal might be a little bit more. It is structured, but it's a process. And yeah, you can
yeah,
say the government's getting money out of you, but it's like Okay, how are you balancing this out? Do you necessarily want somebody that's going around that's going to say, I want to murder these people and they're acting very violently? Do you necessarily want that person to have a firearm? It comes down to reasonable regulation, and that we usually argue over what's reasonable.
Yeah. Well,
Means
again, at the same time with that as well, it's like people blame guns for the fact that like people kill people. Guns are just a means, not the reason for it.
how
Well,
many
Now,
it's a
okay,
force
yes,
multiplier.
like 35 kids may not have died instead of that one kid that one person wanted to kill. But again, like at the end of the day, if you remove guns, you're still going to have that person walking into a school killing someone. It just won't be as many.
I will give you an example, and even if I am going to defend the Second Amendment, I got to acknowledge this because there was a place over, I think it was in China, it was somewhere over in that area of Asia there, but somebody did go into a school, and I think they either had a katana, like either a sword or a very sharp knife, and they stabbed, I think, 26 to 29 people, but I don't believe anybody actually died. Because a knife is a force multiplier. A sword is a force multiplier. Those definitely multiply your force, the damage you can do to other human beings. But a firearm, for the amount of force of pulling that trigger, that is a higher force multiplier, depending on if it's what form it's in. If it happens to be in a semi-automatic rifle and you have large capacity clips, you can do a lot of damage, and we've seen that again and again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, like the last serious shooting we had in Australia, this is when John Howard put all of these laws in place that made guns ridiculously expensive and ridiculously hard to get. You can still have guns because, again, like we have some pretty dangerous stuff here that will kill you, and if you don't shoot it, it's going to either ruin your livestock or your farm or your industry or kill you. It's
Well, that's the thing. Australia's known for
Yeah.
being the place where you go to Australia, you got to check your shoes because there are a lot of things there that can kill you.
Yeah, like spiders, snakes, other things, women. Sorry,
Oh,
I should have
jeez.
said that.
But what? Well, no. Hey, no. If there are cases, but you got to be fair. There are cases going the other way, man. It takes two to
Oh,
tango, my
definitely.
friend.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like, it's not. It's yeah. And
Well, since we've gotten sidetracked into the woods over things that could kill you on a continent on this wonderful Earth we have here, back to employment setups and stuff. So Miss B, how many things over there in the UK actively will kill you?
people.
Okay, what are the circumstances for people killing you?
Well, the highest risk are young black males. And
that's fairly stereotype.
I know that's fairly stereotyped, but Jensen says me. He's probably the most likely thing to kill me. That's true. So in London, we have, I wouldn't say epidemic, but there's a very high rate of young black teenagers being stabbed. Now, they used to only make the news if they died. And even that has stopped making the news because it's become quite common. So unless it's like maybe a little outbreak of a terrorist, we've had a couple of those in London, but the odds are quite low. I don't think there's much here that's going to kill you.
So is a lot of that now? Is that like crime related? Or are you talking about like folks maybe like kind of maybe like dealing some drugs and stuff, and somebody's encroaching upon like another person's like their territory or something like that? Like what's the underlying reasons for like why this?
Well, most definitely for the young males, it is drug related because that is a means to make money, and it is quite territorial. And unlike America where you have quite clear areas of gang. I mean, it's normally in impoverished places, but London is such a strange place because you've got properties that are worth millions of pounds right next to a council estate. So, but it is the ones that are dealing drugs that are the ones that are mostly being killed. Though saying that, there was a kid who used to live around here that I used to talk to, and I think he was Romanian or something like that, and he hung around with his two black friends, and for a joke, he pulled a knife on one of them, and the guy panicked and pulled out his knife and stabbed him back, and missed his aortic artery. Is that the right?
Yeah, artery. Yeah.
And well, he survived, luckily, and that seems to be stupidity.
That sounds like different cultural backgrounds there, because when as soon as you said Romanian, I just went to V, and I have interacted with some Romanian folks. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert or anything, but I could see it's just kind of like a fucked up. I think it may be kind of like the Eastern Bloc style thing, because maybe I'm a little bit Russian here. But as a joke with one of your comrades, you might just kind of pull a knife. I have friends that have done that, and I've had certain friendships that will say have been highly strained because of maybe somebody pulling a knife on somebody. But here's the thing, dude. If you're conditioned to the fact where if somebody pulls a knife on you, they are trying to kill you, and your natural response is you fucking stab them first before they stab you. I mean, like, that seems a bit like a conditioned response, dude. Like, if that's what you're used to. But I mean, if he just used to pull out knives on his friends in a bar over in Romania, it's like that seems like a cultural misunderstanding that had a horrific result, but didn't end up being completely tragic.
I would agree with you to a certain extent on the cultural thing, but there are a lot of cultures here. And for most Londoners, you don't really, although obviously there are different cultures, you consider them a Londoner, if that makes sense. They're like part of your community.
So what you're saying is it's
and
not a
we're all
cultural
Londoners.
thing. It's more like you don't pull a knife on somebody in London unless you're ready to use it on them.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, because here in the States,
I mean, actually, let me tell you about a story of my mumbling mother. Huh?
What was that?
Memes?
Oh, you were talking about mumbles?
What?
You said mumbling something.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll start again. So I was walking home one night after a lock-in at the pub, so it was very late. It was the middle of summer, and I was with my friend. She had stopped to get an ice cream on the way home. It's one of those rapid ones, and she was like dawdling behind, trying to open it and taking her time. And this guy comes up to me, and he mumbles something at me, and I'm like, "What? I don't understand what you're saying. Can you repeat it?" So he then again mumbled something which I didn't understand. And I pretty much told him to go away because I can't understand what the fuck you're saying. So he walks away from me and I carry on walking. And then my friend lets out this scream. And I turn around and I shout, I think I shouted oi or something like that really loud. And he ran off. But he had tried to grab her bag. So I think he was actually trying to mug me very badly.
You were too saucy for him.
No, I wasn't taking his. I couldn't understand a word he was saying to me. If you're going to mug someone, to at least say like, "Give me your money," so that I could understand.
Well, seeing as how much you've literally terrorized Jensen over the years, I'd say of the people somebody is going to mug, you probably aren't the best candidate.
Yeah, I would have decked him if I'd known what he was doing, or kicked him in the balls. Actually,
Well, that's very smart. That's very wise, and you are very spicy. So these things happen.
who mugs someone without a weapon anyway?
People do dumb stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, what did the guy do in the first place to get into a situation where he's needing to steal?
He was
We don't know.
probably drunk and maybe on something, as our parents would
Yeah.
say, and maybe he wanted some more of something.
I'd
Yeah.
go with drugs. That could be quite likely.
Well, oh no, what was the point I wanted to? Where were we at before this? We jumped back into B's friend being mugged while she was trying to open her ice cream.
Was asking me what would kill me in London.
Oh, yeah, I was doing a satirical transition there or something. But oh no, about the savings account for different things. And basically, when Gigi was talking about the Australian system there, all right, so there's money going in to help take care of your health care there. There's an employer contribution as well. So this is
Yeah.
the thing that gets me. It's like there are a lot of my more progressive friends over here. It's like, oh, we need healthcare for all. It's like, no, hey, no, that sounds like a great idea. Just decoupling that from your employer. I mean, if anything, that helps the employer be able to have more funds to allocate to things such as their employees, to additional benefits to attract some of the best employees as well. So you have more incentives, you can continue to grow your business. From a financial perspective, that makes a lot of sense as well. It also
Yeah.
gives the business less power over you as well. The only issue is you have to pay for it. And that's what we always see. It's like, where are we going to get it? It's like, well, there's some accounting discrepancies. Oh, okay, but has that money not actually been spent? Because if the money still has been spent at some place wherever, you're still talking. You look at it, you're talking. What was it? It's like 3.8 to like $5 trillion a year. I think it's like 3.5+ trillion a year to insure everybody, assuming the policy on average just costs like $6,000 to $7,000. Those are the numbers I typically see. You're talking about $3.5 trillion at least. That's a lot of
So
money.
so your health, well, health insurance or covers, if you're wanting to do that, is about $6,000 a year.
If you here's the thing, dude. Like if you're younger in your years, typically it's a lot cheaper. Like it's always towards like your later years and like a lot of like end of life expenses and stuff. Like that's where you see the predominant amount of like healthcare costs and stuff. Because yeah, if you're older and stuff, you don't always recover as well, and there might be more things wrong with you, so it might be more procedures. I mean, just it makes sense. I mean, at times in your life, you might have a catastrophic accident. I mean, that's not likely to happen, but these things do happen. So that's why insurance policies are written in different ways. So they're weighing out the risk and what they're going to have to pay out. But what I'm thinking there is, I don't hear folks saying, "Oh, well, you'd have to do like a Medicare for all tax." So you're talking about another tax. So it's like rather than just not even acknowledge that anything like that's there, it's like, all right, what could we do? Because we do already have taxes for Medicare and stuff. I think it's like 2.5% that you pay into. What happens if everybody in the United States of America, you did have a form of a single payer system? It's going to cost 5% of your income. You'll never have to worry about like these different things. We're going to make the best goddamn system, make it as transparent as possible. You hold the folks running it to account because you got to be transparent with these things. Because a lot of folks, they'll disagree over things because things seem shady. And a lot of times things are shady. And when folks are hiding things and they're moving money around and stuff, folks don't take kindly to that. But I really believe if you're honest with people and you're direct and being like, this is why this costs this, people are generally understanding as long as you're able to show it. Dude, like the I got this crazy idea from going up to New Hampshire, going to the shooting range there. Just like I go to the firearms range there. They put a poster up, and I've been going to this place for a couple of years. Like, why does it cost so much to shoot? They just broke down like, here's our rent, here's our insurance for running a firing range, and they go over and they break out the details. And it was wicked expensive to run that place. So it's like, oh, if I'm going to spend $200, rent a couple of like semi and automatic rifles, and buy a couple hundred rounds of ammunition, fire off using their firearms, I'm like, I can understand why I'm paying this much money.
Yeah, yeah. So with that superannuation thing as well, in Australia, your business doesn't like take out of your actual earnings to pay for that. Like it is just within what your contract is. we
Well,
put
it
money
also makes
into that.
sense because it becomes an
Yeah.
annuity account. It's something that you're constantly investing in.
Yeah.
So if you don't happen to use it, guess what? Over time, if something bad does happen, that money will have grown and you would have had money putting in. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But at that point, you are talking about another tax, another something out of a person's paycheck. And if you're going to do something like that, you got to be straight up with folks. And there are ways you could structure it so it only goes up so much and stuff. So it's like, all right, if you're Donald Trump, if you're making $150 million a year, are we going to tax you 5% all the way if you're probably even buying your own private health insurance? Because that's something I kind of liked about the UK, because the UK, they they give you the option to do your private one, but they still have money going in. I know Cabbage explained it to me before. B,
Yeah.
could you enlighten us on any of that?
So if you earn over 16K a year, you have to pay taxes on that money. You don't get a choice in it. It comes out of your payslip. Also, people don't generally start working until they're 16 or 18, and the first 10 grand you earn is not taxed. So actually, I just got a breakdown of what my taxes were spent on, which is, it's pretty generic, but they've put everything in there. So it goes towards welfare, health, state pension. Also, over here now, we've got your employer has to put in a pension for you. So now not only will I have a state pension, I'll also have a pension from my working place. So they take out a percentage of what I earn and put that into a pension pot for me, which is going to be pittance, but hey. So it goes into education, national debt interest, defense, public order and safety, transport, that's a joke, business and industry, government administration, housing and utilities, etc., like street lights, culture and sports, libraries and museums, environment, overseas aids, UK contribution to the EU budget, and that is what my taxes were spent on.
My taxes go back into paying me because I do a lot of work for governments and they pay me. So
even if you worked for the government over here, you would still have to pay taxes. So I worked for the NHS before I had this job, which is it's a public business, so it's owned by the people. I had to pay taxes then as well. Everybody pays it. So I pay taxes and my employer pays taxes as well on what they earn.
So, I mean, the systems are, I mean, they're distributed in different ways, but it sounds like, at least in general, they're kind of working for you. I mean, Gigi, it sounds like you're kind of bit more on like a government-based contract where perhaps they pay you a premium and then you take care of like your own responsibilities after the fact.
I was, yeah, so like so being on a salary, I get paid X amount each week, but like a lot of my work is for local governments. So for the taxes that I pay on the money that I earn, basically goes back into the governments paying me to do those works. So it's like, yay. But yeah, like it's
Now, how do you find the ability of advancement and stuff? Because this is the other thing. Because we gotta hit a pro capitalism bandwagon stuff because America. So no, and that's the thing over here. Because like I have had like friends and friends of friends that have come over. Like one of my buddies that I met, he happened to migrate over from where was it? Nigeria, and he happened to be an electrician. He had some skills, so he started working. He busted his butt, started his own business, and dude, he's up to like probably about a dozen or so trucks right now, like employing a bunch of different folks working on all these big contracts. So it's like that does kind of show like if you're able to come over here and bust your butt, like you really can make something of yourself. So like, do you think like do you think it's as easy as at least as at least the mimetic of America goes? Like, do you think there's at least a certain level of opportunity that you can still like advance highly over in like the UK or Australia?
In Australia, definitely. Like, if you're willing to put in the effort, there are a lot of companies that are started from the ground up from people that have either come over from another country or even within Australia that have thrived really well. There are the opposites of that, who people who have put in all the effort that they possibly can, and their business has just not flourished at all. But again, it's just situations where at the end of the day, if you're lucky, like, there is, like, the ability to earn a decent wage in Australia is there. Like, for the people who complain about not having work or are unable to pay bills and stuff like that, it's a minority of people who, again, probably gonna get in trouble for saying this, but are lazy and complain just for the sake of complaining, or is just like, everything's out to get me. Life sucks.
Well, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease.
Yeah, like, but again, it's like the
Is
company that I
is
work.
is that
Yeah.
frowned upon?
Um, it's like, so we have a system called the doll over here where you,
Yeah, we have a doll
like,
too.
yeah,
Wait, is
yeah.
that
So
where that
it's
term
like,
came from when folks say, "Oh, they're living off the dole"?
Yep.
yeah,
Or I'm on the doll.
yeah. So it's like the government just pays for everything for that.
See,
They
I
get,
always thought that was based off upon the pineapple company. Isn't there Dole pineapple or something? I was trying to make a
I
very bad joke. It didn't work.
yeah, it didn't. Um, but yeah, again, it's like, I've got friends who have also put years and years and years of study into what they've been wanting to get into and have been unable to find work in Australia. So it's like engineering, for example. We haven't really had an engineering boom, but when they were screaming for engineers, people went into that study, have done their 6+ years of study, but now there's no boom, and you've got this massive influx of really young engineers as well as older engineers with the experience who you can hire and will know what they're doing over somebody who's just come out of university.
The
And
price per dollar of high quality work thereby comes down because there's an influx of engineers on the market. So those that actually have experience that can provide top dollar work, if there's only so much work, they may accept salaries that maybe
are
they
less than
wouldn't
what they're
have
actually worth.
done a boom. And then the folks that would like the best salary they can get after they're finishing up school are having trouble finding work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, dude. I think even over here and stuff, I had a friend that she went to school for what is it, like reading like X-rays and stuff, like a radiologist or something. And now with like new technology, you have just it seems like some of those jobs are actually going away and being released. I mean, of course, there's still like a human element, but like that seemed to be a really good paying job for a long time. So a lot of folks went into it, and now if you're not seeing as many jobs created and some jobs even going away, like those folks invested in a very specific skill, and if that skill's no longer applicable, like what are they going to do?
Hmm.
And this is one of the problems I kind of had with Bernie Sanders and stuff like that, because it's like, don't get me wrong, like free healthcare, free college for all, and stuff like that. Like those are great things. I mean, I would love to have all those things for like myself and my fellow citizens. That would be fucking amazing. But how the hell are we going to do it? How the hell are we going to pay for it? And that comes
Yeah. Well,
down to like how much are you going to willing to invest? What are you going to cut back on? And where are you going to get the money, and how are you going to form it in a way that's not just going to become another bloated bureaucracy, and just how are you going to minimize the waste for the benefit you're investing in?
yeah, but again, it's like, if you start making education and stuff like that free, that they can start getting covered by what people pay in taxes, and then teachers go from being paid less than what they probably are definitely worth to even less. And you've got a whole system, or again, a whole new generation of kids that are getting taught by people who just don't are um, not involved with their job, because instead of working for love, it's like, okay, I'm doing this because there is literally nothing else for me to do, because any job
You
will pay
had
more.
folks, and I think we've all had these teachers where, like, we've had teachers, you could tell they love what were doing. They tried their best to actually like educate kids in a way that was fun, that like you would actually remember stuff like from their class. Like they were just impactful moments in your early education during your life. And then again, you'd also run across folks where you could just tell they were just doing it, and it was kind of just a job to them versus a passion.
Yeah, it's for over here again. I'm not 100% sure how the UK or America has it, but for teachers' wages, you get paid basically for your what you've been like what you've studied to teach. So
No
your generic like English, so science and stuff like that, like you're not going to get paid as much as the other teachers, which again it sucks. There's such a vast wage gap, but again, it's still something that you can live quite comfortably being a teacher. Whereas, like, I definitely know elsewhere, being a teacher is like, I am getting paid absolutely nothing.
Well, and you also have to realize it's like not only are you an educator, you're an educator of children, children of all different ages.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I still remember what I was like as a kid. I mean, there was a point when I was 5 years old. I was on a cruise with my parents. We're up in Alaska. I was on a glacier, and they were passing around an ancient, like Eskimo pewter mug that was forged, like just passed through the family for generations. And they passed it around after the gentleman had been sipping some water out. And I took that cup. And I looked off the side of the glacier. I'm like, that's really far down. I wonder how far down it is. And I cast that mug off that glacier. And I was voted most likely to be thrown off the boat. So I know children are not necessarily angels at all times. So I factor that in. And I remember being in classes where the class made the teacher cry. And like
Yeah.
there were some really mean kids there. And
I
it's
got
just kids can be cruel. Like I take that into consideration. So teachers do take a certain level of abuse, but that's one of those things where it's like you need to understand certain levels of authority with your kids and stuff. And at times it was teachers that either like mentally they weren't in the greatest of spots, or often they were very new.
I remember one of the days that I was at school, like my teacher turned around and it's like, you actually give me nightmares. And I'm like,
Aw.
damn, okay, I need to rethink things. But again,
Ooh.
it's like,
Well, I mean, well, to be fair, Gigi, I mean, we all do have those effects on people. I remember I had a classmate in the 8th grade. He was one of my buddies, been over for his like birthday and stuff. He just turns to me and he's like, "Memes, I had a dream that you killed me." And I'm like, "Oh, well." I mean, was I kind? Was I swift? I mean, I don't think I knew how to respond.
yeah, again,
Like
it's
I
the same.
gave a coy smirk or something, like, "Huh?"
I dated a teacher for a little over a year. I can't remember. But yeah, no, she actually told me as well. It's just like, if I had you a student, you would be my worst student. Like, you are like hands down like one of my nightmare students. And that was just telling stories of what we did at school. And
Wait, what
like,
now? What was this your teacher?
I want to hear one.
no. This is a few years back. So yeah,
So you weren't in
it's
school.
no, I wasn't at school. Given I was quite lucky to actually have fairly attractive school teachers, but anyway, that's another story.
Oh, Miss Shepherd.
Miss Lowe.
Yeah, Miss Lowe. Yeah, see, a couple of our school teachers are only like young 20s, so it's like, like, I'm 18 next year. Can we meet up? Take you out on a date.
Well, we live in the age of
We can go to
Facebook and
Macca's
shit,
because
man.
I
Like
can't afford
this
anything else.
is, I mean, it doesn't surprise me as much as it probably should.
Yeah.
Over
I
here
mean,
in the UK, our teachers for the standard schooling system get there is 3 different grades. So they will start off, I think it's level 3, and they can work up to a level 1, which is the highest you can earn as a
yeah,
school
yeah,
teacher. Then you've got private schools, which obviously you'll earn a lot more, and then higher education and post specialists. So
yeah.
it really depends on where you are. But for the bog standard, the 3 grades, the lowest of the grades, is still more than what I'm earning. So it's pretty decent.
Yeah, so we have a similar system to that. Then you get paid for how many units you actually teach. So you get a point system. So each class will take up X amount of time. So depending on how much you actually teach in that school, will vary how much you actually get paid. So the girl that I was dating, she was on 80,000 a year, and I mean, like, that's pretty decent for an
Yeah.
Australian wage. But again, like, it, she was damn good at what she did.
Well, that's the thing. No, if you're compensated appropriately, if you're really good at your job, that's something that, I mean, it's can be hard to show at times. It's just like for me, when I see like basing things on per hours, like when I'm even filling out like my healthcare thing back in the day, it's like, well, how many hours did you a week did you work? I mean, if I'm doing sales, especially if I'm just doing just pay per unit or something like that, it's like, okay, I might have a week where I work like 50 or so hours. I might not actually have any revenue because nothing was physically installed. And if that's how I'm being paid, then it's like I earn nothing one week, but then there might be one week I only work 20 hours. I'm getting 2 weeks worth of pay. I might be getting paid out extremely well.
Mm.
But it's one of those things. It has a very high variable in it. So it's like I have experienced that. I realize it can go really well. It can go very poorly. There's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And I just it's difficult to do if you have a certain level of base funding and stuff like you can make it easier, and it does depend on the industry, but it's you're talking about payment processing, completing jobs, what type of industry it is. Like these aren't simple like one size fit all things, and that was the thing that kind of bothered me about with the Affordable Care Act and President Obama. And when he's in the debate saying, well, Obamacare is 95% of Romney care, Mitt. It's just, when I hear that, I'm like, all right, Massachusetts, we're a state that physically is not necessarily the largest of states. We also have a very large amount of universities and hospitals. We have a lot of medical programs for doctors, nurses, just all types of folks that work in the medical industry. And we did cut other things. There were public sector cuts, and folks were pissed about Mitt for doing that, but he did what he said he was going to do. He
Yeah,
ended up saving the money. We ended up getting $1 billion, I think, surplus at one thing. So that was how we end up paying for Romney Care. Every state within the union is different, and that's the thing. I don't think it's a one size fits all, because I've even heard for like Germany and stuff, the healthcare is delegated to the states, and then the federal government, they basically help out a bit.
yeah. See, like we have a thing called Medicare, and then you have your health cover as well. So Medicare will cover a certain extent. So like just like GP checks, um, certain doctor facilities will cover that. So if you're just getting checked, okay, what do I have? They will tell you and do just your general checkups. So if you've got a cold or need antibiotics and stuff like that, that's covered by our government. If you're so like I need glasses to see, but I have to pay for that to an extent. So the government will cover X amount depending on what healthcare I pay for. So I think off the top of my head, the government covers $150, which covers
Mm.
most pairs of glasses.
You
But
generalize
again,
frames and stuff.
yeah, I'm a little bit picky with how we look.
We
So
all are.
my frames are a little bit more expensive. But again, $150 off a $300 pair of glasses, I'm pretty happy with. Like,
No, I think we do something similar. I think most plans, it's usually that
yeah,
it's like 150, sometimes maybe 200, depending on how you get your plan. And you can always
yeah,
get a fancier plan in case you want glasses more often or fancier frames and stuff.
yeah. See, like my healthcare cover is $300 and something, and that covers ambulance, general medical, and then um a X amount off of like certain things. So if I needed to get my teeth fixed, for example, if a filling costs X amount of dollars, my healthcare will take X amount off of that. So it'll pay for a chunk out of however much that filling might cost, for example.
Hmm. No, it
But
really it depends on the situation. It's like
yeah,
when I
but
look.
again,
Go on.
you can tailor your Medicare or your health insurance or whatever um, to what you actually need. So if I wanted to actually just have that cover my glasses, I can be like, well, like I barely ever. I think I've been to hospital once. I could get rid of all the stuff that I actually don't need, like physio that I've got covered, um, ambulance. I could probably take that off
I
as well.
well,
But yeah, again,
dude. I mean, you're
you have the
adjusting.
opportunity to
You
yeah,
do, you do.
yeah.
It's a pain in the ass.
No, here it's relatively easy.
Well,
Again,
okay,
we
is ease
have
of access. Dude, I'm going back to that 42-page application, and then
yeah.
oh, you got to do it again. It's like I need to do this again, and there's more page. Oh, hmm.
See,
No, we
we
had the
get
whole
given a
Obamacare
card.
thing. Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
we get yeah. So if I need to go get my teeth done, it's not we don't have to fill anything out to get my teeth done. It's we've got a card. They scan it. It works out how much money that card covers your teeth being done, and that's it. That's all we have to do. We don't have to like we go in. We let whichever company you go for your healthcare. You say, "Hey, I'm blind," and they'll be like, "Well, this is for you. This covers you being blind."
Wait, so they can kind of adjust it to what you need at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Well, that how, so you guys have a card?
yeah. So they give us out a card that attaches well that gives you your number, and then it's basically like a bank card. So when you go to wherever to do whatever, you scan that, or you basically swipe it. It takes that money out. So if it's say your appointment's $120 and your Medicare card covers $80 of that, it's yeah, it takes that $80 off and you pay $40.
Well,
I
it sounds
think
no. You have like a health savings account. I mean, that's something we have over here as option.
Yeah. So you do have to sign up for that. So that costs me so the cover that I have is 300 and something bucks a year, and then that covers like ambulance. I get a free pair of glasses for the up to an X amount a year. Um, and yeah, like a certain percentage of any medical if I do need to go in for any surgery or whatever.
No, I mean that seems to make a lot of sense, and it's
Yeah,
just
and I think it's a system that works really well. But at the same time, not everyone has say $300 or more, depending
well,
if it
that's
does
the
cost
other
more.
thing. Like,
Yeah,
what are you going to do? Like, if you're younger and fairly good health, it's your healthcare costs are going to tend to be a lot lower than somebody that's maybe in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, and maybe has worked like in the mines or something their entire life, and their body's kind of been beaten up for like 30, 40 years. Like, that's going
yeah,
to be a different situation.
yeah.
I feel so privileged. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. If I get sick, I go and see a doctor.
Yeah, no, so we have that system. So that's covered by the government. So that's Medicare. So that's all covered. And then on top of that, if we want other extra things covered, we then pay for specific things.
Everything is covered for us. I don't have to pay a penny. The only thing that you do have to pay for, what I have to pay for because I'm working, is my medication, but then you get it at a reduced rate. So 1 month's medication of any kind will cost you £7.50.
That's pretty good.
Well, over here in the United States, if you get sick or hurt and you don't have health insurance, you show up at the hospital and they'll put you in stable condition. You're probably not going to die or anything, but then you have the potential for going completely bankrupt.
Yeah.
See, here, if you turn up in a hospital in that kind of shape, depending on which hospital you get lucky with, they will do their best to try and fix you, and they won't charge you for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference here, because if someone doesn't have coverage, then all of a sudden, depending on how the coverage is worked, all I know, guys, is if you're getting billed for 2 aspirin in a little paper cup, $60, that seems to be a reason that we've convoluted so many different things and overcomplicated it.
But again, this is where, like, you know how I said the 3 points? There are 3 points, or 3 things that most countries won't do anything about, or leave it the way that it is because it makes them so much money, and that is guns, drugs, and pornography.
I was told I should sell drugs.
Yeah. Because
I was knocking on this dude's door trying to sell him like cable and internet, and all of a sudden he looks me up and down after I give him my sales pitch, and he's like, "You should sell drugs." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Pardon?" He's like, "I used to be in pharmaceutical sales. I was one of the top guys around." He's like, "Go in this, you'll be making 100 something." I'm just like, da 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 da. I'm like, well, to be fair, I'm like, I'm kind of making around that anyway, and I'm like, something about having to sell drugs, it's like, all right, I always might be a bit iffy about just kind of sales in general a little bit. I'm selling cable and internet. If the cable goes out, that sucks. It's not the end of the world. If I'm pitching a pharmaceutical drug that has a less than 1% addiction rate according to our studies and stuff, and down the line turns out that it's highly addictive, I don't know. That's
surprised we've actually been selling cocaine this whole time.
Well, these things happen. It's always in demand.
Yeah, but again, it's like, I don't know. Again, I can understand why America won't do anything about guns. It's because they make a lot of money off of it. Like, if you're making money off of it, why change it?
No, I hear you. And I'm thinking, we've been going for a good solid hour and a half, going on 2 hours now. Would we think about wrapping up? Any final thoughts on the different employment systems and anything that we've kind of discussed?
We need to grab a bunch of sand, create our own little island, and create a perfect utopia.
Yay!
That sounds like an excellent goal.
Yeah, and at least this way we don't have to go around killing people because they don't have blue eyes or blonde hair.
Yeah, and even if they're not a dragon, I think we can all get along. But
the entry is a unicorn. You have to supply a unicorn.
Well, I know unicorn blood is supposed to be there, but they are an endangered species, so we have to be considerate, Gigi. But no, thank you both for joining me. Thank you for anybody that has tuned in and anybody that may watch in the future. And we're just going to be wrapping it up. So, hey, everybody have a happy Festivus, a Merry Christmas, and whatever else you may celebrate, and have a Happy New Year. Peace out, everybody.